Hello, my name's Greene. I'm a sculptor and I'm having a show in this amazing octagonal space that was built in the 1700s as an exhibition space. When I first saw it, I thought that I had to make this work and put it here because the room lends itself to large sculpture. I conceived this body of work for this room. I was going along with the theme that I've been working on for several years, which is of man and wolf and their relationship between each other. Initially, I didn't really know why I was making these things. I started making men and wolves probably about 7 years ago, and I sort of have grown into it, and in a way, this work that's here is a goodbye or a kind of signing off on that theme which has occupied my heart and soul for all these years. I would spend quite a bit of time applying for competitions, as every other sculptor does, because it is the finance that feeds your habit, because making sculpture is a habit. It's not something you have a choice in. You just do it because you have to, and ultimately it's the thing that makes you happy or unhappy. So a non-commissioned work gives a sculptor incredible freedom to pursue a pathway that does not have to be commercially viable. It's not answerable to the public the way public sculpture should be, but that probably stems from the fact that I am primarily and passionately a figurative sculptor. Although I love abstract work, figurative seems to be what I always end up doing. I think even the texture of the finish or texture of the work that I've made, it has that slightly crumbled, textural feel also. The color I used the color carefully because I was thinking about this beautiful pink crumbling walls. So the green set of 5 figures called Ecce Homo, Behold the Man, which is really a play on the fact that the central and most important figure in Behold the Man is the wolf kind of figure, which is looking up to the sky, aspiring towards perhaps a deeper humanity. I mean, there are many ways you could read this work. You can talk about the relationship between man and animal and the dualism that exists between them, and how, in a sense, we have forgotten or lost connection with the sheer, I would call it, integrity and honesty of the animal in nature. The animal in man is always true. Grief is true, love is true, hate is true, and there's so much veneer that, in a way, making this work, it was about trying to strip away layers and come back to something that resonated with me. I actually worked simultaneously on each of those figures, because you couldn't work on one figure, finish it, and then start another. So they were each kind of emerging, as it were, out of that chrysalis, or whatever word you want to use, in a kind of even, simultaneous manner. I wanted them to have enough space so that human beings could walk through them. I didn't want them to be sort of tight together, because then they wouldn't breathe. And the materials I use are the kitchen sink materials, you know, plaster Paris, metal, wax, pigment. So it's not a challenge that way, in that I have the freedom to make these things. And this piece down here was conceived as apparently the Tibetans, their mythological creatures are blue wolves, which I subsequently discovered, having been making blue wolves. Sometimes there's a zeitgeist going on. And it's about a boy, the young boy, not having that inbuilt reserve or fear of really anything. They would just simply go up and embrace something. About 10 years ago, I did these 3 figures in bronze, and they were small, and they were of kind of wolf-ish kind of figures. Interestingly enough, it wasn't a successful piece at all. And I've never really liked it, and I've taken them off the plinths, and I've tried to re-put them in different ways, and it hasn't worked. And then one day I was just in my studio, and I thought, well, maybe there are elements that work and there are elements that don't. So I painted some wax on and took almost an imprint of the aspects of each of those figures that I felt said something. And that's why I ended up having 5 small kind of remnants. I call them remnants on purpose because they're remnants of something that did exist, and they're related to that kind of wolf theme. These pieces might seem unrelated to the work in the assembly rooms, the smaller wolf remnants, but that was the genesis of them. You make this work because you have to make it. You don't have a choice. And then once it's done, it's time to move it to the outer world, the world beyond your studio. Now, whether that's out in a field, so that it's out of your mental zone, or to a city, it doesn't actually matter, but it's about the process of letting go.